Joseph James Rogan is an American UFC color commentator, podcaster, comedian, actor, and former television presenter. He hosts The Joe Rogan Experience, a podcast in which he discusses current events, comedy, politics, philosophy, science, and hobbies with a variety of guests. Rogan was born in Newark, New Jersey, and began his career in comedy in August 1988 in the Boston area. After relocating to Los Angeles in 1994, he signed an exclusive developmental deal with Disney and appeared as an actor on several television shows, including Hardball and News Radio. In 1997, he started working for the UFC as an interviewer and color commentator. He released his first comedy special, I'm Gonna Be Dead Someday, in 2000 and hosted the game show Fear Factor from 2001 to 2006. After leaving Fear Factor, Rogan focused on his stand-up career and hosted more comedy specials. He launched The Joe Rogan Experience in 2009. By 2015, it was one of the most popular podcasts in the world, regularly receiving millions of plays per episode. Spotify obtained exclusive distribution rights to The Joe Rogan Experience in 2020 for $200 million. Early life. Joseph James Rogan was born in Newark, New Jersey, on August 11, 1967. He had one Irish grandparent, while his three other grandparents were all of Italian descent. His parents divorced when he was 5, and he has not been in contact with his father since he was 7. He recalled, "All I remember of my dad are these brief, violent flashes of domestic violence. But I don't want to complain about my childhood. Nothing bad ever really happened to me. I don't hate the guy." At the age of 7, he moved with his mother to San Francisco, California. When he was 11, they moved to Gainesville, Florida. They later settled in Newton Upper Falls, Massachusetts, where he graduated from Newton South High School in 1985. Rogan participated in Little League Baseball and developed an interest in martial arts in his early teens. He recalled being terrified of being a loser as a child and said, "Martial arts gave me not just confidence, but also a different perspective of myself and what I was capable of. I knew that I could do something I was terrified of, and that was really difficult, and that I could excel at it. It was a big deal for me. Martial arts were the first thing that ever gave me hope that I wasn't going to be a loser. So I really gravitated toward it." At age 14, he took up karate and started taekwondo a year later. When he was 19, he won the U.S. Open Championship Taekwondo tournament as a lightweight. He was a Massachusetts full-contact state champion for 4 consecutive years and became a Taekwondo instructor. He also practiced amateur kickboxing and held a 2-1 record. He retired from competition at age 21, as he began to suffer from frequent headaches and feared he might sustain worse injuries. He attended the University of Massachusetts Boston but found it pointless and dropped out early, later moving away from the Boston area at the age of 24. Career. 1988–1994, early stand-up career. Rogan had no intention of being a professional stand-up comedian, and initially considered a career in kickboxing. He was a fan of comedy from a young age, later saying of Richard Pryor's special Live on the Sunset Strip, "It affected me in such a profound way. Nothing had made me laugh like that." His friends from gym and taekwondo school, whom he would make laugh with impressions and jokes, convinced him to try stand-up. At 21, after 6 months preparing material and practicing his delivery, he performed his first stand-up routine on August 27, 1988, at an open mic night at a Stitches Comedy Club in Boston. While living in Boston and working on his stand-up, Rogan held several jobs to secure himself financially, including teaching martial arts at Boston University and in nearby Revere, delivering newspapers, driving a limousine, doing construction work, and assisting a private investigator. Meanwhile, his blue comedy style earned him gigs at bachelor parties and strip clubs. One night, he persuaded the owner of a comedy club in Boston to allow him to try a new 5-minute routine. At the show was talent manager Jeff Sussman, who liked the act and offered to become his manager, which Rogan accepted. In 1990, Rogan moved to New York City. As a full-time comedian, he was scratching and grinding for money and stayed with his grandfather in Newark for the first 6 months. Rogan later cited Richard Jeni, Lenny Bruce, Sam Kinison, and Bill Hicks as comedy influences. 1994–1999, iHeartBall/I and iNewsRadio/I. None. 1997–2006, UFC commentator and I Fear Factor/I. None. 2005–2009, comedy specials. In 2005, actor Wesley Snipes challenged Rogan to a cage fight. Rogan trained for the event for 5 months before Snipes backed out following an investigation by the IRS for alleged tax evasion. Rogan believed Snipes needed a quick payout to alleviate his debt. After Fear Factor, Rogan focused his career on his stand-up comedy, as concentrating on television had made him feel lazy and uninspired to work on new material for his act. With the money he had earned from television, Rogan hired 2 people full-time to film him and his comedy friends on tour, and release clips on his website for his Joe Show web series. In May 2005, Rogan signed a deal with the Endeavor Talent Agency. 2 months later, he filmed his second stand-up comedy special, Joe Rogan, Live, in Phoenix, Arizona. The special premiered on Showtime in 2007. In 2005, Rogan wrote a blog entry on his website accusing comedian Carlos Mencia of joke thievery, a claim he had made since 1993. The situation culminated in February 2007 when Rogan confronted Mencia on stage at the Comedy Store in Hollywood. A video of the incident was uploaded onto YouTube and included evidence and comments from other comedians, including George Lopez, the Reverend Bob Levy, Bobby Lee, and Ari Schaffer. The incident led to Rogan's talent agent expelling him as a client of the Gersh agency, who also managed Mencia, and his ban from the Comedy Store, causing him to relocate his regular venue to the Hollywood Improv Comedy Club. Rogan later said that every comic he had talked to was happy and thankful that he did it, and went on to sign with William Morris Agency. Rogan returned to the Comedy Store in 2013 to support Schaffer in the filming of his first special. In April 2007, Comedy Central Records released Rogan's 4th comedy special, Shiny Happy Jihad. The set was recorded in September 2006 at Cobb's Comedy Club in San Francisco, and contains excerpts of an improvised Q&A session with the audience that was typical of Rogan's act at the time. 2009–present, latest endeavors and podcast. Rogan hosted the short-lived CBS show Game Show in My Head, which aired for 8 episodes in January 2009. It was produced by Ashton Kutcher. The show involved contestants who try to convince people to perform or take part in increasingly bizarre situations for money. He agreed to host the show as the idea intrigued him, calling it a completely mindless form of entertainment. In 2010, Rogan accused comedian Dane Cook of joke thievery. In 2011, Rogan resumed his role as Fear Factor host for its 7th and final season. Rogan took the job, saying he would hate to see somebody else do it. Later in 2011, Rogan played his first major film character, Gale, in the comedy film Zookeeper. He was also working on a book around this time that he tentatively titled Irresponsible Advice from a Man with No Credibility, based on his blog entries on his website. Rogan played himself in Here Comes the Boom, another action comedy film starring Kevin James that was released in 2012. In December 2012, Rogan released his 6th comedy special Live from the Tabernacle exclusively as a download on his website for $5, following Louis C.K.'s example. In 2013, Rogan hosted the television show Joe Rogan Questions Everything on the Sci-Fi Network, which aired for 6 episodes. The show covered topics discussed on his podcasts, including the existence of Bigfoot and UFOs, and featured several comedians, experts, and scientists with the aim of trying to put some subjects to bed, with an open-minded perspective. Sci-Fi agreed to produce the show without a pilot episode. The production team gave Rogan some creative control over the program and aimed to present it in his own words where possible. The Joe Rogan Experience / None. On it. Personal life. Rogan married Jessica Ditzel, a former cocktail waitress, in 2009. They have 2 daughters, who were born in 2008 and 2010. Rogan is also the stepfather of Ditzel's daughter from a previous relationship. In 2008, they moved to Gold Hill, Colorado, but returned to Southern California 4 months later when Ditzel became pregnant. They settled in Bell Canyon, California, where Rogan had lived on and off since 2003. In 2018, they purchased a new home in the area for almost $5 million. In 2020, the family moved into a $14 million home on Lake Austin in Austin, Texas. Rogan became interested in jiu-jitsu after watching Royce Gracie fight at UFC 2, No Way Out in 1994. In 1996, he began training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Carlson Gracie at his school in Hollywood, California. He is a black belt under Eddie Bravo's 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, a style of no-gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and a black belt in gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Jean-Jacques Machado. Rogan has vitiligo on his hands and feet. He was raised Catholic, having attended Catholic school in 1st grade, but has since abandoned organized religion and has called himself an agnostic. In October 2019, he revealed that he is a first cousin once removed of My Chemical Romance members Gerard Way and Mikey Way, although he has never met them. In January 2020, Rogan went on a carnivore diet for the month, eating only beef, elk, eggs, and supplements such as amino acids and fish oil. As a result, he said that he lost 12 pounds and experienced an increase in energy and relief from some prior health issues. However, he admitted that the diet negatively impacted his digestive system. In January 2022, he went on a meat and fruit diet for the month. He has previously tried vegetarianism, but claimed it did not work for him. Views. Political positions. In 2020, CNN described Rogan as libertarian-leaning. Rogan has said that he holds a wide variety of political views and does not easily fall on any particular side of the political spectrum. He has described himself as socially liberal, saying that he supports same-sex marriage, gay rights, women's rights, recreational drug use, universal health care, and universal basic income, but also supports gun rights and the Second Amendment. Rogan describes himself as a strong supporter of freedom of speech, and has criticized cancel culture and what he perceives to be suppression of those who hold right-wing views in the television and film industry. He has also criticized what he describes as an American foreign policy of military adventurism. Rogan endorsed Ron Paul in the 2012 U.S. presidential campaign and voted for Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. He endorsed Bernie Sanders during the 2020 Democratic Party presidential primaries, but ended up voting for Joe Jorgensen in the general election. Rogan has criticized political polarization in the United States and accused American liberals of hoping for former U.S. President Donald Trump to fail simply because they disliked his persona. Rogan has said that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis would be a good president, adding that what he's done for Florida has been admirable. Rogan opposes Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, calling him a fucking dictator, and called Canada communist while admitting that he has zero understanding of Canada's system. Rogan also said that he liked Trudeau prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. 2020 presidential election. 2022 midterm elections. Drugs and spirituality. Rogan supports the legalized use of cannabis and believes it holds numerous benefits. He hosted the documentary film The Union, the business behind getting high, and was featured in Marijuana, a Chronic History and the Culture High. He also supports the use of LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, and DMT toward the exploration and enhancement of consciousness, as well as introspection. He was the presenter in the 2010 documentary DMT, The Spirit Molecule. Rogan has an interest in sensory deprivation and using an isolation tank. He has stated that his personal experiences with meditation in isolation tanks have helped him explore the nature of consciousness and improve his performance in various physical and mental activities and overall well-being. Other views and advocacy. Rogan is an avid hunter and is part of the Eat What You Kill movement, which attempts to move away from factory farming and the mistreatment of animals raised for food. Rogan is opposed to routine infant circumcision and has claimed there is a lack of significant scientific evidence for any benefits to the practice, which he considers not entirely different from female genital mutilation because of its non-consensual nature. Rogan has been an outspoken critic of trans women competing with women in all forms of amateur and professional sports, including MMA matches. In April 2022, Rogan said that transgender swimmer Leah Thomas might be the woke straw that breaks society's camel's back. In October 2022, while interviewing Tulsi Gabbard on his show, Rogan shared the widely discredited litter boxes in schools hoax, claiming that public schools were providing litter boxes to students who dress up as cats. Controversies. Remarks on COVID-19. In April 2021, Rogan made contentious remarks about COVID-19 vaccines, in particular claiming that young, healthy people do not need to be vaccinated against the virus. This view was criticized by Anthony Fauci and White House Communication Director Kate Bedingfield, as well as by several media outlets. Part of the objection was that there have been notable cases affecting young, healthy people. Rogan acknowledged there was some legitimate science behind Fauci's view and emphasized that he is not a doctor and should not be taken as a respected source of information. On September 1, 2021, Rogan tested positive for the virus. Soon after, he released an online video reporting on the status of his condition and stating that he had begun a regimen including monoclonal antibodies, prednisone, azithromycin, NAD drip, a vitamin drip, as well as ivermectin, a drug usually taken to treat parasitic infestations and not endorsed by the FDA as an effective treatment for COVID-19. This caused some controversy due to multiple people reportedly being hospitalized after self-medicating with an over-the-counter form of ivermectin designed to treat ailments in livestock, which typically has a significantly larger dosage. Rogan criticized CNN for describing ivermectin as a horse dewormer. CNN chief medical correspondent Sanjay Gupta later admitted during a podcast they shouldn't have said that. Outpatient prescribing of ivermectin had recently increased significantly due to the unproven claim that it is effective against COVID-19. The FDA called this trend disturbing. On September 3, 2021, Rogan tested negative for the virus. In January 2022, 270 scientists, physicians, professors, doctors, and healthcare workers wrote an open letter to Spotify expressing concern over false and societally harmful assertions on the Joe Rogan Experience and asked Spotify to establish a clear and public policy to moderate misinformation on its platform. The 270 signatories took issue with Rogan broadcasting misinformation, particularly regarding the COVID-19 pandemic and more specifically a highly controversial episode featuring guest Robert W. Malone, a contributor to the studies recognized as among the earliest steps towards mRNA vaccine development. The episode has been criticized for promoting baseless conspiracy theories, including an unfounded theory that societal leaders have hypnotized the public. The signatories further assert that Dr. Malone is one of two recent JRE guests who has compared pandemic policies to the Holocaust. These actions are not only objectionable and offensive, but also medically and culturally dangerous. The signatories also note that Malone was suspended from Twitter for spreading misinformation about COVID-19. On January 24, 2022, musician Neil Young posted an open letter threatening to remove his music from Spotify if they did not remove the podcast The Joe Rogan Experience from their service. The podcast, one of Spotify's most popular, has been criticized for spreading COVID-19 misinformation. Young wrote that Spotify has a responsibility to mitigate the spread of misinformation on its platform. On January 26, Spotify removed Young's music. A spokesperson said Spotify wanted all the world's music and audio content to be available to Spotify users and that it had a great responsibility in balancing both safety for listeners and freedom for creators. On January 29, Joni Mitchell removed her catalog from Spotify in support of longtime friend and fellow polio survivor Neil Young and the global scientific and medical communities on this issue. Responding to the controversy, Rogan denied intentionally spreading misinformation and pledged to try to balance out these more controversial viewpoints with other people's perspectives, and said that he agreed with Spotify adding a disclaimer to the beginning of his videos. During the controversy in early 2022, video platform Rumble offered Joe Rogan $100 million to switch from Spotify. Shortly after the offer, it was reported by Variety that the offer was declined. Use of offensive language. In February 2022, singer-songwriter India Arie shared a compilation of Rogan saying the racial slur nigger on the Joe Rogan Experience on Instagram. Rogan apologized, calling his past language regretful and shameful while also saying that the clips were taken out of context and he only quoted the slur to discuss its use by others. The footage in question was first published by the political action committee Patriot Takes, an affiliate of the liberal PAC Midas Touch. This resulted in allegations of a defamation attempt by Midas Touch, which the founders denied in an interview with Barstool Sports founder David Portnoy, instead attributing the source of the footage to Alex Jones, who was a recurring guest on Rogan's show. Rogan described the video compilation as a political hit job. Spotify had refused to carry 42 episodes of the podcast when it acquired the exclusive rights. Spotify says it spoke to Rogan about his history of using some racially insensitive language, and it says that Rogan selected 70 episodes which were removed on February 4, 2022, all of which predate the COVID-19 pandemic. Filmography and discography. Television. Feature films and documentaries. Comedy specials. Video games.